Recording now. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Good. Long day. Just excited to be able to just strap in and talk to you about whiteness.
Yes, yes, I agree.
Whoa. Not gonna lie, like them talking about the 2000 election, when we were all of like 4, 5-ish.
Mhm.
Do you remember that election at all?
I do. I think that's the first, of course, that's the first. That's definitely the first one I remember. I remember we actually learned about the candidates in school, and then our parents had preferences, our friends' parents had preferences. I think I even had an opinion in that one, even though I didn't know anything about politics or
Yeah.
anything outside of the playground, really. Yeah, I remember that one. Do you remember?
Yeah. So I have this very vivid memory of waiting in the pickup line at elementary school, and my friend Annie came up to me and just went, Hannah, that kid, that kid over there. Ooh, was that a little echo? We good?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My bad. That kid over there, his parents are voting for Al Gore. And I was like,
Wow.
ah. Because being in Texas, we were all very proud of George W. because he's from Texas.
That's right. Oh, snap. Yeah. We didn't
Yeah.
have any special connections with either candidate, but there were certainly I mean, the school we went to, I think most people were also for Bush, but there were certain types of people who voted for Bush and certain types of people who didn't. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I went to a private school in Texas, so
Mhm.
you can imagine who our parents were voting for. Um, but I mean, obviously, like the rest of Bush's presidency completely shaped our young lives. Like, because we had to deal with 9/11 and Katrina
Mhm.
um, from a very young age, and those were both during his presidency. So I remember like those two big events, but I also don't remember much of his second term.
No.
Like 04 to 08, we
No.
would have been like third grade to seventh grade.
I only remember that election because that was the first time we really talked about politics. I think it was the first time I heard conversations about politics and the election. And then after that, really nothing until Obama.
Yeah, until Obama. And then Obama happened, and that was all great and amazing. And then this last election,
Mhm.
probably one of the most stressful periods of my life to date.
Yes, I became reacquainted with politics during this last election cycle. Yeah,
Um,
a lot of stress.
yeah. What were you doing on November? It was either November 5th or November 6th when they called it. Do you remember what you were doing?
Um, for not this recent one,
Yeah, this recent one.
this recent one. Oh,
I mean, we
let
were all
me.
in the middle of a pandemic, so.
Yeah, I did the poll watching election day. So I was at the site for maybe like 6 hours. I'm not sure for a good amount of time, and then we went out to eat. And then the election results started coming in, and I felt a little, a little stressed, a little anxiety. So at first I didn't want to know, but then we came back home, and I watched them as they came in, and Oh God. And then it lasted for days, right? Which I was not expecting. I wasn't really listening to the experts or anything about what to expect. So the fact that we didn't have a winner the night of the election was in some ways relieving because I think at that point it did not look good. But then also stressful because I need Biden to already win. What about you? Do you remember? Or I'm sure you remember.
So the day that it was called, I remember I was going to a spin class and I had to go through Times Square. And it was called that morning because my spin class was like at 12. And so I had to walk through Times Square and people were gathered in the streets just screaming and cheering. Someone was blasting Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA. It was just it was like a wild block party, and like everyone I knew had been so fatigued over just the course of the year and also just the election cycle. It was draining.
Definitely.
Like all of the mudslinging, all of the just everything that was brought up. I remember sending out a group text during the first debate and I was just like, all right, everyone, how are we coping? And then almost every single reply had some form of alcohol in it. Mm-hmm. I was like, it's where we are. It's fine. Yep. We are fine. But this was probably the most involved I've ever been in an election. My polling place, I wasn't able to volunteer this round, but my polling place had around the block 3 times. The line was 3 hours long.
Wow.
And I remember I was like the third to last person in line for the last day of early voting. And I was sitting in that line until like 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, I'm working on election day and I can't just piece out of work to do this. So I might as well just stand here. My roommate brought me focaccia bread, homemade focaccia bread, and some grapes while I stood in line because I missed dinner. And I was just like, you're amazing.
I'm surrounded by angels. Yeah, that's incredible.
And I just made friends with people that I was in the line with. Like, it was so much more celebratory than my first election that I voted in, which was 4 years ago, where I drove to my polling place in Texas because I was living in Texas then. It was just quiet. And I don't know, there was nothing going on.
Yeah.
And it was like, because I also knew who the majority of the people in my county voted for. I want to say only like 3% voted Democrat, voted for Hillary in 2016. And I just remember after the first election, I had friends who were people of color just being like, I'm not leaving the house. I don't want to get hate crimed.
Yeah.
And so I just really vividly remember that. What about you for the 2016?
2016. Oh, no, I remember this election. I'm shocked it took me this long to think about it. I was in college.
Yeah. I was all right. Yeah, college. It's wild.
Yeah, I was a junior. Oh my gosh. Okay, so when I voted, I lived 20 minutes. My college is like 20 minutes away from where I grew up, 20 minutes from my polling place. So I just came home, I think for a night. It was a huge problem with our school because we didn't have voting day off. And so we had class, and some people couldn't afford to miss class because you have 1, 2 to 3 absences for the semester. I was really fortunate, social work. So our professors, they were like, just go vote and then write a reflection about it. So I went home and I voted with my mom and my brother and my dad. I think my dad was there. And so that was, okay. But then the results came.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I remember that night because at first, like, Hillary was doing really well. And I was like, okay, great, dope. And then Florida was coming in and it was looking not as great. And then at a certain time, I was like, I have morning workouts in the morning. I'm not watching this anymore. I will see the results in the morning. So I woke up the next morning, saw the results, and it literally felt like a funeral for the
Oh,
whole day.
yeah.
Yeah, that I don't know if I'll ever forget that. It was like the universe was completely in tune with how I was feeling. It was cloudy, it was dark, it was sad. I'm pretty sure I wore black that day because I was mourning. What about you?
I remember going to class and several of my classmates, several of my social work classmates had voted for Trump.
Wow. Yeah.
So, especially being in the South, but also that weird position of being in the South and in a social work program, you would think that it would be a whole nother story. But then you have to realize, like, even just the vast differences between classmates. Granted, like my cohort for undergrad had 5 people of color, including myself, which I don't even count half of the time because I was raised by white people. So it was another one. 2 of us were adopted by white families, so we didn't really even grow up with a minority experience. So there was that, and I remember one of my professors just being like, just, this is a safe space, just take whatever time you need. Whereas like my campus had like Young Republicans of Texas chapter. All the frat guys were huge fans of it. So people on campus were like celebrating and stuff, but I just remember feeling low-key scared and also just like, what is going to happen in 4 years?
Right.
And we never knew. But I think what you mentioned about Florida is a good transition into getting into. Yeah. Because he started talking about disenfranchisement, and I was like,
he did. Yeah. He went, I mean, I think this was one of the most intense and one of the hardest chapters to read so far. Definitely.
And like, I was reading it while I was trying to stuff my face with avocado. So I was just like, dang.
A lot of things are happening right now.
So many things to concentrate on. I just don't know. So first thoughts, did you think that right out of the bat it was going to be all about, like, did you think that it was going to be the direction you thought it was going to be whenever you read that the title of the chapter was just white?
No, I didn't anticipate this at all. I thought he was going to talk about his experiences maybe with white classmates as a young kid, or maybe people he worked with if he had like an internship at his job while he was in college, or even after he graduated. I did not anticipate this at all.
Yeah, it got in there. I was just like, dang it, Kendi, you've done it again. And I know we say this every week.
Yeah.
Every single week.
It is the song we sing every week, but he continues to deliver.
So, like, he opens it up talking about, like, his experience in college and just being like, you know what? White people.
Yep.
So had you, just going through that, also just what we just witnessed as well in January whenever it came to the Georgia Senate runoffs. Like that huge push by, God bless Stacey Abrams. She's amazing. And flipping Georgia blue, but then we're just now seeing the governor like straight up stripping so many different like voting rights away, like restricting drop off ballots, absentee voting. They made it illegal for you to just hand out water and snacks to people in line now. It's wild. Like, we are literally seeing history repeat itself right now.
Yeah, in front of our eyes. It's appalling. I mean, Georgia did the right thing. I mean, from our viewpoint, Georgia did the right thing. Georgia, a red state that Republicans can count on, said nope. Nope. And our people got out and voted and put Biden in office. And so for them to take that and try to completely flip it is appalling to me. Like, how do you even respond like that?
And they're doing it the legal way.
Yep.
That's the crazy thing. People just automatically assume something good is legal, something bad is illegal. Guess what was bad but was totally legal? Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Jim Crow. The Immigration Act of whatever year, I forgot. My brain just went putting quotas on the types of nationalities that are being allowed in at the border. It's ridiculous.
And it's legal.
And it's legal.
Scary part. Yeah, I think when we were talking about, or when impeachment happened, I remember watching AOC on The Breakfast Club, and Charlamagne asked her, what is the point? What was the point of impeachment? This was after it happened. She was saying, we took a stand and said that this is not okay under the law. We are not protecting this. We are not standing for this. And so the fact that you're able to disenfranchise voters, just blatantly creating racist policies, definitely points to who the law is meant to protect.
Exactly. And I don't know if you saw that video circulated, but there was a state legislator that went and knocked on the governor's door while he was signing this bill behind closed doors to completely disenfranchise so many voters. And the lawmaker got arrested for knocking on a door.
Wow.
For knocking on a door to try to voice the opinions and the rights of their constituents, and they were straight up arrested. And it was very, very publicized.
Wow.
Like, Georgia, what are you doing?
Yeah, what is happening? And all that work Stacey Abrams had to deal with when she was running, and then did all of the hard work to try and make sure people had opportunity to do what they have a right to do, for you to completely just
bowl that over. It's like,
legally,
yeah. Who is this system protecting? So whenever they went and broke down the recount, I remember hearing about the November 2000 recount. Like, there were SNL jokes about it, like, I demand a recount, blah, blah, blah. But now whenever Kendi like broke it down and talked about who was in charge of the recount, how they divvied it up, and the process of it, people like, I just don't get, like, do these systems just believe that people aren't going to notice what's happening and what they're doing?
right?
Like, it's just so wild. Like, I remember even just driving to my own polling place in 2016. It was like next to the highway. There was no bus stops near it. And I was like, if you want to try to vote here in McLennan County and you don't have a car, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Like having the right to vote isn't just enough anymore. It's having access.
Right.
It's having the right to access the vote.
And then like election day being on a work day.
Election day being on a work day.
Everybody doesn't have the day off. And everybody can't take off. Yeah.
And on top of that, like, the laws that they have about people who are convicted felons not being able to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm very curious as to like people. So they just legalized weed in the state of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious about all the people who have been charged with selling or doing weed. Now, are their records going to be expunged? Are they going to be able to vote now
Right.
that it's not illegal anymore?
Well, in New York, you can vote if you
Yeah,
have a record, right?
yeah,
I think that's what I saw. But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any type of anything on its expungement of records yet.
yeah.
And I've seen a lot of, yeah, it's legal. So, I mean, but you can't, to me, you can't legalize weed without the expungement of records because
Because
it's so racially based.
it is, and disproportionately like affects black and brown people groups. Whew, talking about that also just gave me a high heart rate alert.
Mm-hmm.
uh like talking about voting rights definitely gets my heart rate up because like what does America do? It we brag about being the greatest democracy in the world and the freest country in the world. But really, are we?
No, not even close.
No.
Not even
Not even
close. Because I mean, look who is free to vote, and look who has to fight really hard, and still maybe their vote will be thrown out because of some technicality that didn't really exist.
Yeah, like we play by the rules and then you change the rules.
Yeah.
Well, cuz y'all have the power to change the rules. So what does it even matter if we follow everything and do everything above board by the book?
Mm-hmm.
It's just really demoralizing.
Right. And exhaust. Yeah, I think that's a great word. And exhausting because you continuously do. Okay, I did this. Okay, I did this, and then for it all to be swept under your feet, then
I think that's like
what
what
was all that for?
yeah, I think that's what a lot of our generation is really starting to kind of just be we're over it. Like for instance, for like gun reform. Like people have been lobbying for against gun reform for I want to say Columbine, which was in like 93, so before we were even alive.
Mm-hmm.
And look where we are almost 30 years later.
Yeah, doing it the right way.
Doing it the right way, and we still haven't had any major legislation.
Mm-hmm. Which I mean, if we don't do gun legislation, it's apparent it is necessary. I saw my representative Lindsey Graham. So this is some radical. This is the most radical thing my counterparts have ever produced on gun legislation. And oh gosh, it's just so appalling to me that people this can't be a party thing. It just absolutely cannot be a party thing. It's got to be a our lives are valuable thing.
Mm-hmm. And like that
Oh,
also, like Kendi also mentioned that later in the chapter, like what is white supremacy even protecting even? Like because whenever we work to end white supremacy, to end like all of this capitalistic overtakings or whatever, like everyone, like whenever we have really good high quality universal healthcare, everyone benefits. A lot of the people that benefited from affirmative action were white women. A lot of people that benefited from Obamacare was poor white people.
yeah.
It kind of reminds me about like right after the Civil War, how like the ones that really were the most angry about the freeing of the slaves were people that were too poor for slaves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
And
come on.
Are you kidding? You benefit the most from this. It's just so interesting because, I mean, okay, first of all, I did not know white women were the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action. When he said that, I had to do more research. I was like, I need a further explanation. That is insane to me. Like, yeah, white people versus Black and brown people, and that was one of the most interesting things about Trump is that, okay, poor white people were for him, but he in no way was for them. They benefited more under Obama, but are more likely to speak poorly of Obama and not recognize all the things he did.
Like, it's like whenever, okay, like, I'm sorry if you like the Kardashians, but I cannot stand the Kardashians. And so I'm using them as this example. But it's like whenever people are like, yeah, the Kardashians totally deserve all the money that they have. And I was like, no, they don't. And then they get angry at me for saying that someone that has way more money than I will ever make and more money than that person ever makes in their life, like, are exploiting the system, are somehow, like, that's the thing. Like, whenever, like, the rich get all of these tax cuts, I'm just kind of like, why are you defending someone that wouldn't give a crap about you?
Right. And how do you not see that? What they do has nothing to do with you.
Exactly. But I'm like, if I could take a portion of their wealth and increase the betterment of society at large, yeah. Guess what higher taxes in New York State pays for? My job.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. It's just,
go ahead.
It's just wild.
I know Kendi has a quote for this exact feeling. That I thought put it so perfectly into words about how white people just don't understand. Well, people who are fighting for white people who are saying that policies like affirmative action are racist against white people don't understand that it does not help you that much either. Let's see. Racist ideas suspend reality and retrofit history, including our individual histories.
Yeah, like the people who would benefit the most from universal health care would be the exact people who are against universal health care.
It would be better for you, better for me, better for all of us. Come on.
I mean, like, I would love to go through life without having the fear of, like, one major medical catastrophe putting me in debt until I die.
Yeah.
I imagine that's how everyone would feel.
Especially because that's the reality right now.
It is the reality.
One thing can happen and you can't pay your bills. That is real. Like, that is plausible.
Yeah. Like, if your bills go to collections, you are done for. Like, come on. Like, we are in our young 20s. Do you think our parents were worrying about this whenever they were our age?
No, right? Everything. I remember I understand the conversation about college tuition and how high it is, and people who are from different, like, older generations are saying, oh no, college, it's fine, you need to pay for college. But they were going to school when college was affordable, when it was maybe you spent $1,000. Yeah. And that's understandable. But I mean, the fact that a four-year, most people do it in 5. Yeah. A four-year tuition is, I mean, that can land you easily into $50,000. And that's being generous.
Like, I got a full ride for undergrad, and I still had some expenses that I took out a couple thousand for. And, like, that was, like, still, like, living in the dorms the first 2 years, which arguably could have been more or less expensive. depending on the housing and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. College students having to understand the housing market? Come on. Like, it's just putting so much worry that shouldn't be even, it shouldn't even be relevant.
Right.
Like, if we had universal housing, if we declared housing as a human right, because like the amount of empty real estate that New York City has right now, but it just doesn't match up with the amount of our homeless population.
Wow.
I think the same thing is happening in California too. It's like, this isn't a problem. We're making it a problem.
Right.
Because why give people shelter when you can charge like thousands and thousands of dollars for it, but no one wants it?
Right. Yeah, capitalism, not a fan. Not a fan. And my thing with college tuition and universal healthcare and universal housing is we're able to do it. It's a different conversation if we're not able to do it. But if people, all of us, pay our taxes, if we all do our part, we can do it, and we're deserving of it. So why that's not a priority, why our government serves businesses before it serves us, is a real conversation that we have to continue to push and put in people, elect officers who really stand for us as opposed to the status quo.
Exactly. It's just wild to me how our country just doesn't seem to get it. Like, we have one of the lowest life expectancies out of any developed nation, and developed versus developing nation is also a very not a great term, but it's a universal term, unfortunately. It's just put social workers in charge. We need to put social workers in charge of everything.
Yeah, we could fix it all.
It's just like, I don't know. I was having an argument with my mom one time in the middle of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Chewy's, but it's a Tex-Mex restaurant.
Okay.
But anyway, we're having this argument in the middle of Chewy's. And all of a sudden she whips out, the government can't tell me what kind of light bulbs I need to buy. And I was just like, no, like EPA regulations isn't that. It's just so that we don't all die and use all of the Earth's resources before it's like I don't know, irreversible. I'd kind of like to live to a ripe old age of maybe 60.
See what happens with life. You have the option
to retire.
Yeah.
But it's just wild that like these policies that would benefit everyone, why don't the people that it would benefit, why don't they want them? Was it because they were brought up by like people that they deem less than? And then they bemoan anti-white racism, which isn't a thing.
Yeah, okay, I'm curious what you think, because in the beginning, it definitely seemed that Kendi was anti-white racism is real. But as he continued to explain different topics and different things that he encountered, it seemed more that he was being sarcastic and that anti-white racism isn't a thing. So were you able to get a stance on where he stood?
I agree with you that it at first I was just like, oh dang, he really does hate white people. But then I was getting more of a sarcastic tone as well. I remember being called a racist against white people in high school. And I actually believed it, that I was a racist against white people, because I said white people suck because someone had said something in reference to Columbus Day, and I was just like, you mean a genocide? Okay.
Yeah.
And then my theater teacher called me out on it and threatened to send me to the principal's office.
Wow.
For being racist against white people.
Against white people. I'm not sure if I can disagree with Kendi. But I've always said that racism, it has to be with a historical backing.
Mm-hmm.
If we are racist against white people, which
No.
I'm not really sure that's a thing. There's no historical backing. It's not like their value is decreased. It's not like I'm hinting at something that was awful that was done to them in the history. Racist against black, brown people, race being sexist against women. There's a backing there. Like there's stuff that comes with that. And so I was really interested this entire chapter just to see what his perspective was. I get what he means. And then I mean he does explain that anti-white racism is usually for the people who are pushing back, the white people who are pushing back, is our policies not centered around them. That is anti-white racism. Okay, so to me that's not anti-white racism.
No,
that's not a thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's like Parks and Rec, which is one of my favorite shows ever. The final season where Ben was running for Congress and Leslie was being sued by this PAC, this political action committee called the Mailmen, as in MALE, men, and they fought for men's rights. And one of the lines that they said during the protest that they were protesting her, they said, you know, men's rights have been trampled on really recently. We had it great until really recently. And then her rebuttal was just the best thing ever. I literally took a screenshot of it and put it as my phone background for a little bit, which was, you're ridiculous and men's rights is nothing.
So you're ridiculous, anti-white racism is nothing.
Yeah, basically. Anti-white racism is nothing. If you want to talk about like the dominant narrative in any way, shape, or form, it's always focused and centered and marketed towards white people.
Every day is White People Day.
Yeah. How come white people don't get a White History Month? Oh, you mean eternity? Like a huge part of the reason that the AAPI community has been just so saddened by like these anti-Asian racist attacks is just like just historical erasure. Like Asian Americans, like we get like maybe like 3 sentences whenever they're expanding the railroad, maybe a little bit whenever it talks about Asian immigrants in California.
Wow.
And then the Japanese internment camps in the 40s, and then boom, what else? Like, right. Where are our histories and where are our stories? That's just something that I feel like is very, very unique to the Asian American community because we are the second largest immigrant community in the US. Mm-hmm. Like if you look at the numbers, Asians are the second largest.
Yeah.
And we're invisible half of the time.
Yeah.
So that's like just a huge other issue that I feel like we definitely are over 30 minutes right now, but
really?
Yeah, my watch went off, but like
5 more minutes, please.
I know, right? Just 5 more minutes talking about anti-racism. Come on. But like, yeah, like white people get everything.
Yeah. I mean, why is history? You bring up a great point. The second largest population in the States, and history is 98% white. And it's not even told correctly. I mean, the fact that we have Christopher Columbus Day. I mean, the fact that Black history starts with slavery.
We went to Columbia University.
We're social workers.
It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we should be talking more about Asian American culture and history, and we should be talking about all of our groups, right? It should not be 98% white people are amazing and the backbone of this country, because they're not. Never have been.
The country that they stole, and on the labor that they low-key also high-key stole
Yeah.
and trampled on. And then took
That's
credit.
why it was so hard to read this, I think, because in some ways he was feeling sympathy. He did have a really great quote about sometimes white people are the victims of that power that they have, that privilege that they have. Like, in privilege, I mean, we know you don't ask for it, you don't earn, it's something that's given to you, and some people don't know how to handle that. So, I did understand that, but it's very difficult for me to feel sympathy for a group that has had all this power for basically eternity.
100%.
And I'm not seeing a lot of movement to try and in any way at least make our future look brighter. We can't do anything about our past, but we can certainly set up steps for our future to look better.
Yeah, and like we talk about things like reparations, and we talk about things like universal health care, and people don't want to put in the work.
Right.
I was having a conversation with someone the other day about that image of racial equity versus equality versus justice.
Okay.
And they were a corporate, I forgot what the actual title was, like a corporate consultant for diversity, inclusion, and DIO, an opportunity or something. I don't remember the corporate words. Anyway, we were talking about it, and we were talking about the fence image, where like where equality is everyone gets the same step stool to see over the fence. Equity is where someone gets a taller step stool, but they all get to still see the same level over the fence. And then justice is just removing the fence. Right? Yeah. Justice is just removing the fence. So we were talking about that image, and she was just like, I feel like it's oversimplified. And I was like, well, yeah, because they don't show how many shovels it took to remove that fence.
Yeah. Removing a fence is not easy work. And neither is.
My heart rate went up again. Yeah. My heart rate keeps going up.
It's this topic.
It gets me going.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no one wants to, like, it's hard to feel sympathy for white people when they don't want to put in the kind of work that may or may not be required. When we talk about reparations, they think about it as like this crazy radical idea. And I was like, you do realize that we have 400 years of slavery in this country. Like, slavery is older than this country. What are we going to do about it?
Crazy. Like, oh my gosh. And then the biggest thing I think always is, where's the money coming from? Which is always the conversation when it helps anybody who are not white people who benefit from privilege, who benefit from all of the things that they, like the status quo. I mean, reparations were promised to my ancestors by white people. So the fact that now it's a whoa situation is crazy.
Like, come on. And like, reparations promised to your ancestors that still haven't been fulfilled. Reparations promised to the indigenous population, whose land we definitely stole. And slaughtered and created a mass genocide over them too. By we, I mean white people. I was low-key brought here against my will. Not saying that I'm mad about it, but
yeah. I mean, when you talk about all of the awful things that have happened in our history and are currently happening in our present, Kendi has I remember this quote. Actually, maybe I don't remember. I want to say it perfectly about how when all of the voter suppression happened in Florida for that election, he realized that this is not a democracy. And let's see what the quote is. I no longer saw the United States as a democracy. And I certainly had that realization after Trayvon Martin's verdict. It's like, this country is not for all of us. Or it could be, I'm hopeful, but it right now and in the past has not been for everyone.
Like, why are we continuously trying to fight and work within this system that was never built for us? The system was built surrounded by white interest and to protect white capitalism.
And that's what the argument for mass incarceration is. The system isn't broken. It was never meant for everyone.
Yeah.
The system is actually doing exactly what it was designed to do. The difference is, well, not even the difference, because there's been a lot of work by ancestors and people on which work we're standing on. We're working to dismantle that now.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. It's just like, it feels so urgent when these systems have had hundreds of years to be built. It's like we're taking a hammer to the Great Pyramids or something.
Right.
Like, we don't have a wrecking ball unless like we were to go straight up Hunger Games on this, which we can't. And I don't encourage. We're on a unsecure line. But like, this is the system that we have. What are we going to do with it?
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point. It's going to take time. We don't remotely have the answers right now. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time. And that is disappointing, because justice is definitely something you would love instantly. But it's hundreds of years old. It's going to take some time.
It's already been a long time coming. That's the frustrating thing too. Yeah. Like even when we talk about like reparations to the Asians that were interned in the Japanese internment camps in World War II, like a lot of them never got their livelihoods, their land, their homes, their shops, their property back. They were promised that, but that never happened. So like, that was in the 1940s. Like, my grandparents were still alive. That was only 2 generations removed. How do we even begin to start providing reparations to something that is so many generations older? Right. And it's not even just about the money. It's about restoring human dignity.
I remember reading an article, The Case for Reparations. It's quite lengthy, but it is really great. And one of the points they brought up is that reparations are so important because then there's some form of economic attachment. And there's not much you can do in this American society without the money, without the capital. It's so, so, so important. They could say, okay, for example, with slaves, you're free, but I don't have any land. I don't have any money. That extra thing, having land, owning land, having money, having property it's a really important, underestimated part of being free.
Like, the same could be said about our justice system. When someone is released from the justice system, if they don't have any family, if they don't have anything to fall back on, I mean, there's organizations, but they're stretched thin.
I mean, they're literally released, right? And they walk through the door, and I guess you pray you have somebody to come pick you up.
Yeah.
Like, where do you live?
Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I think that points how our justice system is not about justice. Our criminal justice is not about any type of reform, any type of rehabilitation. None of that.
Ugh. My gosh, so many issues and heavy topics. It started with voter suppression. Now it comes to mass incarceration and reparations. How do we even begin to tackle this?
Yeah.
it's just all so interwoven and such a huge, just like, I don't even think it's like that imagery of like, how do you eat a whale? One bite at a time. I don't even want to take a bite of this because I'm already like, the whale's already like on top of me and squished me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we invite other people to the party to eat the whale, and then we all come away pretty full and the whale's gone. So a lot of it is unifying and organizing too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm so exhausted.
Yeah, organizing is definitely a huge part. If we organize, then we can get, I mean, a lot has to go through policy, I feel. We can get politicians' attention, and then we can start to see some bills and policies passed in our favor. But I think it's got to be something else too, because I mean, that is so white dominated. And that is, I mean, we've made it very clear the law is not about protecting everyone. So I don't know what that other aspect is.
What's the magic ingredient?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has been wonderful hashing this out with you, as always. My brain hurts.
Yeah, this was a rather intense one.
We say that about every chapter too. Oh, it's so wild. But I will see you next week when we talk about
Black.
I don't know why I said I like that. But this chapter was white. Next chapter is black. Can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
I will see you next week.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.